in the line. Will, shoulder. Higher, higher. Deeper, CT. CT, Will, back fine. Go straight out, CT, hold the line. Hold the line. Now, cover. Will, get out there. Drop into the second pocket! Just fuck it on! Drop, Arena! Arena! Get inside there, get inside, central with it, we're coming inside. CT! There we go! Fucking jogging to the ball! Drop! Watch your man, Aruna! Don't switch off! Aruna, get cover! Get out there, 16! Get out there! Back in! Oh, fucking hell! That's on his body.
Friday night football returns to JL Murphy Reserve with the prize tonight for Port Melbourne or the Oakleigh Cannons on offer. A first win of season 2025 to kickstart their campaign in this round 3 clash. Hello, thanks for joining us for this matchup. We're glad to have you company on the NPL Victoria live stream. After a narrow defeat with only 10 men against last season's premiers here a fortnight ago, the Sharks backed up by shipping 4 goals at Avenger Park on Saturday. Manager John Markowski knows how to get the best out of an unheralded squad, and no doubt he'll be looking to tighten up the defence tonight while hoping to hit the scoreboard on home turf for the first time this season. And we'll take a short break here as we pause for a minute's silence. Okay, we're going to continue on with the intro for last season's champions, Oakleigh Cannons. A first win of evaded them in league fixtures against Avondale and Green Gully, as well as the Community Shield against South Melbourne. With players returning from injury, along with traditional Cannons' slow and steady start, this match shapes tonight as Chris Taylor's side a chance to really release the handbrake in pursuit of their title defence. My name is Steve Curtin. Pleasure to be bringing you all of the action this evening, and alongside me, it's a very warm welcome to the broadcast position, Neil Simons.
I am absolutely excited and exhilarated to a T for this fixture, Steve. I mean, 2 sides which I never thought I would ever say are both winless for the season. On the balance of both squads, Oakleigh Cannons, much stronger of the 2, hasn't quite gone to the best of starts, but CT is no stranger to poor starts in the NPL Victoria, Steve.
That's right. Well, as you mentioned in our discussion before the game, Neil, this match was a finals clash a couple of years ago. But let's have a look at those lineups. There's a change for each of the sides. For John Markowski's Port Melbourne Sharks, they welcome back Nathan Dibb from suspension after copping a red card in the first 20 minutes of the season against South Melbourne. He comes back into left back. Alex Condolian resumes in goal. Also in defences, Amenhom Cummins and Maker and Jonathan Vikertis. In midfield, it's Nicholas Dibb and Anthony Leban, Delano Ferro and Mark Latsis out wide. And 2 up top, it's Thomas Alessandrados and Josh Markowski. There is no Liston Diaz in the matchday squad for Port Melbourne this evening. We're about to get underway. It's going to be the Oakleigh Cannons playing to the right of your screen in their white change strip tonight. And, well, the Oakleigh Cannons, they've made 1 change as well, and we'll get to that shortly as Mark Latsis is on the burst. He's been able to play a little higher up the park this evening with the absence of Liston Diaz. Out wide is Joe Knowles, and Oakleigh looking to get on the attack straight away. End-to-end football in the first minute, and it's out of play by Amenhom Cummins. And that starting lineup for the Oakleigh Cannons, Neil, we've just got the 1 change, as we mentioned.
Harry Arneson comes in for his first start for the Oakleigh Cannons. Of course, the former Brisbane Roar youth product arrives from the Premier League in Wales. So as for the Oakleigh Cannons, a back 4 of Nick Fewley, Brodie Boyce, Jordan Hall, Jacob Tratt and Kingsley Sinclair. In midfield of Cameron McGill, Joe Guest and Matthew Dench, alongside Harry Arneson, Joe Knowles and Nasad Kasimovic in the attacking third, as we will see the Oakleigh Cannons now take the corner kick.
A little bit of a worm burner from Guest as he looks back at the quadrant to see if he's taken a divot out of there, which he's not needing to replace. Might have hit the top of the ball more than underneath it with that delivery, but, well, a player with the quality of set-piece delivery like Joe Guest, it would be unlikely that he would mess up twice in a row. Throw going the way of the Port Melbourne Sharks. Over here on the baseball diamond side of the venue, it's around 29 degrees here at kickoff this evening. Certainly one of the warmer nights I've been at JL Murphy Reserve. Just a light breeze of around 11 kilometres an hour that is favouring either end. It's probably the end that Oakleigh are attacking at the moment. And here's McGill. He's got no Noah Holmes next to him tonight. Those 2 forming a good duo in the double pivot without Oliver Kubalay there, after he departed the club to Preston Lions in the off-season.
And they nearly got his midfield partner, and Oliver Kubalay was subject of much interest in the off-season, but fortunately for the Cannons, they were able to retain their championship-winning midfielder, Cameron McGill, who's spent a few seasons now at the Cannons since arriving from the Dandenong Thunder. As we do see now, Karmas look out towards Nathan Dibb on that left-hand channel. It's Pharaoh, nice little 1-2. both former Preston Lions teammates, as Nathan Dibb is going to have a lung-busting run up the field, looking to play in Delano Ferro, but the Queenslander Brody Boyce, the trademark sliding challenge, of course, now forced a bit further right out of his natural right centre-back position with the additions of Jacob Trout and Jordan Hall in the mid-season window of 2024 as Anthony Laban wins the Sharks another throw-in. Many would call this Port Melbourne Sharks side the Melbourne Victory youth side of old. Laban just one of many ex-Victory Academy players in this team, including Jonathan Verkurtzis, of course, part of that Victory youth squad nearly a decade ago, as Dibb looks to latch in across. It's Latzis out towards that right-hand side. It's Verkurtzis! It looks to pop one over the top of Nick Feely. It's tipped over the bar, and the Sharks get the first set piece of the evening.
Well, it would have been a collector's item for the right back, Jonathan Verkurtzis. He just has one goal in the top flight in NPL Victoria. The former Pascoe Vale defender, and, well, he wasn't far away there, forcing Nick Feely into action to tip it over the top for an early Sharks corner.
I do wonder what's happened to Liston Diaz. It appears he has a bit of a injury niggle, as he signalled to us in the commentary box. Steve?
Well, more on that later, as this one comes in towards Leban, an attacking header. It landed at about the penalty spot. A scramble in the penalty area, way by Guest. It was a hearty clearance by the Englishman. Alessandrados is going to win the free kick for his side here. So the young man who's starting his third game from 3 so far this season, playing in attack, 2 up top, Markowski and Alessandrados in something of a 4-4-2. We saw John Markowski line up with last week at Avenger Park. Here's Nathan Dibb. Farrow, who won the penalty last week, that was converted by Liston Diaz, who, well, huge mistake by Feely. He's dropped the ball here. Alessandrados on the turn, makes some space and blasts it straight into the breadbasket, and Nick Feely can breathe a sigh of relief.
That is a very uncharacteristic mistake from Nick Feely. Just didn't quite judge the cross from Delano Ferro, and Alessandrados, the youngster, looking to get in behind and secure the Sharks' well, very much unexpected opener here in the 5 minutes that we've had so far. Is a great crossfield ball out towards that left channel. It's out of play, though, for Kingsley Sinclair, who has brought along a Kiwi with him. Campbell Strong has played a little bit for the Cannons this season. Started in that Community Shield match against South Melbourne. Here is Nathaniel Dibb now.
Both former Eastern Suburbs boys in Auckland, and there's been a steady flow of Eastern Suburbs players. Dan Edwards and Andrew Withers have played here at Port Melbourne in the past as well, no longer with the club anymore.
Yeah, crazy times. I mean, Andy Withers, as my understanding, is not even a Dandenong Thunder player anymore, so we need more Eastern Suburbs players in the NPL, Steve. Here's Joe Knowles cutting onto his left, looking to play the teasing ball into the feet of Brody Boyce. Here's Leban. Looks to unleash Mark Latzis, who's coming high, and so to Nick Feely off his line, and a makeshift header was more or less inconsequential, as the Cannons will take the resulting indirect free kick from the offside flag.
Well, Mark Latzis, a couple of goals from right back for the Sharks last season under Nick Marinos, is relishing the opportunity to play as a right midfielder, right winger, with Jonathan Verkurtzis holding down that right back spot. Mark Latzis has been released. As we said, Liston Diaz lining up on the right wing last week. Well, opportunity to get in behind there and use his pace, and nearly did there. It was well played by Nick Feely, who, despite the fact that it was offside, he had to commit to it and didn't let that earlier mistake knock his confidence, as you'd expect from a goalkeeper of such quality. Here's Brody Boyce. Concedes possession to Farrow. Alessandrados. Leban. It was Karmas who manages to keep possession. This is Nathan Dibb. Back into a corner here, the Sharks. Karmas's clearance has ricocheted. Well, as we saw in round 1, it's a bit of trouble clearing their lines. Yeah, a fortnight ago, that resulted in them going behind against South Melbourne. Good pressure from Josh Markowski, winning the ball back, and he's got Farrow in support. Jinx inside, and a contact from his opponent there, McGill. Advantage is played. Markowski floats it into the back post area. It's well away by the bearded Trat at the back post. Latsis was lurking. Feely's going to mop up again, so real end-to-end feel to this one, Neil, in the early minutes.
I have to say, I'm very surprised as to the level of pace and intensity the Sharks are playing. A very youthful squad themselves under John Markowski, of course. Off-season troubles have sort of beguiled the club in recent seasons. As we do see Mark Latsis look to latch on that right-hand side. Will Jordan Hall get to it first? He's been forced into a corner, looks to loop in across. It was low-driven at that, couldn't find the feet of Josh Markowski, as his brother Jonas will be in action in about 10 minutes or so for the big match up at Preston. The derby against Altona Magic.
Huge crowd out there expected tonight, Neil, and we'll keep you across the scores around the grounds tonight.
As Joe Knowles looks to nutmeg one Nathan Dibb, of course, interestingly enough, with the number 80 on the back of his shirt. I'm just not as quite sure why he's chosen that number, but I'm sure it's very special for him indeed, as we do see a dim ball behind him. Might find Konsumovic in a tight angle, who looks to absolutely wallop that ball. It's almost hit a car on Plummer Street and might have found its way into Derrimut Gym as well. Or Pika, perhaps.
Oh, as we were talking beforehand, Neil, we saw some big units wandering down the street down there. I was nearly going to have to call for reinforcements as I wandered into the venue here from that Plummer Street end of J.L. Murphy Reserve. But yeah, Konsumovic there, his eyes lit up. That ball sat up nicely, but he just couldn't wrap his foot around it and get over the top of it to arrow that one under the crossbar and test out Alex Condolian, who's, well, he's had the lesser task to do out of the two goalkeepers so far. Nick Feely at the other end has been more busy. Condolian taking some time off the clock here with this one as he chips this one upfield. It's flicked on by Nicholas Dibb. McGill just rushes it forward. Maker and Karmas. A bit of a mix-up there. Lack of communication. We saw those two. That partnership is still forming, you fancy. Last week, a couple of moments. Defensive lapses in the centre of defence against Avondale that gifted the Avengers a couple of goals in that 4-1 loss. And it'll take a little bit of time for that partnership to blossom, and I'm sure it will in the coming weeks. Maker and Karmas. And this defensive duo here, Hall and Trat, well, how good were they in the back end of last season, Neil? They came in, they played 10 matches in the league each last season in the mid-season transfer window, and they played a huge part in their championship win. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, two of the best central defenders we've seen in the NPL Victoria on paper, at the very least, in recent seasons. Of course, both not privy to having prior senior NPL experience either. Of course, Trat in Sydney, playing for the likes of the Sutherland Sharks. Or Sharks FC, as we would have said a few weeks ago, but they've since...
Only for, was it 2 weeks?
I think it was a week, actually.
A week?
Anyway. And Jordan Hall, obviously, was formerly at Green Gully prior to re-signing with Melbourne City. So both have taken that experience from both the A-Leagues into the NPL and have thrived thoroughly. So to see Joe Knowles now with the attempted volley. Just driving it onto his right foot. That would have been spectacular. He did score an absolute screamer in extra time against the Port Melbourne Sharks in 2022 in that 2-1 win, which secured them the spot in the grand final that season, in which they defeated South Melbourne comprehensively at the Olympic Village. And after that, Joe Knowles went across to the Brisbane Roar, drove all the way to Brisbane, and the rest is history. Here's Laban. Down for Delano Farrow. Back with Laban. Has some space to play the pass, but opts to utilise his back four once again. Dibb. Now Delano Farrow. Cannon's pressing high. It's Farrow forced all the way deep. Here's Condolian. Forced to play upfield. Markowski. Space has been vacated, and Laban will exploit. Twirling onto his right. Did it hit the arm of one Harry Arneson, not according to Yannis Zizis. Joe Knowles down this near touch line. He's got to find space for Arneson in the centre circle, assessing his options down that left flank, and decides to utilise one of them in Matthew Dench, who's going to make a lung-busting run forward, but a collision of players, not by intention from Maker, hence the lack of foul. But is the Western Australian all good here, Steve Curtin? It looks like he might have ended up second best, as they might have to call for reinforcements.
Yeah, let's just take a look at that replay of that 1-0 Maker coming out of the defensive line, and wow, it was almost the meat in the sandwich there. He's getting back up onto his feet now. We might take this chance, Neil, to just go around the grounds, because we said there's 4 matches taking place in NPL Victoria tonight over at Green Gully Reserve. It's a bit of a grudge match. We call it the David Schick derby, perhaps maybe, but Green Gully and Hume City 1-1. Ashcroft opening the scoring on 12 minutes, and an Amir Abdallah penalty kick against his old side, where he performed so well last season on 41 minutes, means it's 1-1 at halftime. And the Melbourne Knights are trailing at home at Topset Stadium. Manny Agwek opening the scoring for Avondale on 25 minutes. That is a half-time score. And we're yet to get underway between the Preston Lions and the Altona Magic in that big derby out there at BT Connor Reserve, or Jenna Steele Stadium, if you like, tonight in Reservoir. They're on the banks of the Merri Creek in Melbourne's northern suburbs. But here in Port Melbourne, it's a glorious sunset over Port Phillip Bay. You know what they say, Neil, red sky at night is Shepherd's delight. It's going to be a fantastic day tomorrow. We might see you down the beach if you're not at an NPL ground, or perhaps on your way there tomorrow. We've got the Dandy Derby tomorrow at 7 p.m, so maybe plenty of beach time tomorrow afternoon.
Nothing better than beach time and watching Carl Taylor in the middle of the park for the Dandenong Thunder, I have to say, as we do see now Josh Markovski muscling his way through. And he's got plenty of defenders to part with, does Josh Markovski, but wasn't quite successful. It's quite the step up from State League 2 to the NPL. Just about 5 steps on the Football League pyramid.
Well, he won the ball back so well there, but then he unfortunately ran straight into trouble and coughed it up again. Yes. But he shows you what he's capable of. He can be a real nuisance to these defenders, you know, like the likes of Tradden Hall, who are so confident on the ball. He can still ruffle a few feathers, can Josh Markovski. Yes, a bit of pizzazz from the man who played his football at the Altona Magic under his father, John Markovski, 2 seasons ago. The brotherly relationship up top, in which he scored a few goals in that campaign, and didn't get too many last season at State 2 level, did one Josh Markovski. Just 3 in 11 games for Mill Park. I wonder if he only played half of the season because he was on maybe a Euro trip or something the other half of the season, perhaps Neil. As tends to happen in the State League football, the curse of local league coaches around Melbourne and Victoria. Star players jet setting off on around the world tickets mid-season. Yes, absolutely so. As we do see, will find its way towards Maker. He's going to force a bit of trouble for Condolian, the ex-Moreland City player. Of course, there's a few of Moreland City's players that are still in and around the NPL. Jamie Latham's popped up at Dandenong City. Prior to that, the Melbourne City youth product, who's dealt with that distribution eloquently well. And will force a fantastic crossfield ball towards Nathaniel Dibb. The return pass not quite executed to full effect as Maker in his second stint for the Sharks finds his way on the halfway line. Of course, a cousin of Thon Maker, I think brother actually of Thon Maker, the former NBA basketball player. 10th pick of the NBA draft in 2016, I believe. I might be incorrect there, but check that one on Wikipedia at halftime, Neil. Yes, there's definitely a relation there. I have to be very certain of that. Sharks gaining territory. It's Verkurtzis looking to line one up. And, of course, has been given the captain's armband today, Steve. And I just want to put in perspective, he was a Joey's member of the FIFA World Cup held, I believe, in Chile. Yeah, in 2015. In 2015. Team members include Jake Brimmer, Kai Rolls, and a man who's on the Oakleigh Cannons bench, in PS Waring. PS Waring, that's right. So also other NPL alumni like the likes of Lucas Derrick in that squad as well. Yes. And they come up against a red-hot Nigerian team, and a team that consisted of Victor Osimhen, who scored a hat-trick against the Joeys mercilessly as Johnny Verkurtzis took on the big, powerful striker for 90 minutes in Viña del Mar. What a career he's gone on to have as well, Victor Osimhen. Now on loan at Galatasaray, of course, after a successful stint at Napoli. We've lost the football here, I fancy, Neil.
I don't know what's happened here. We've lost the football, but I'm pretty sure we should have at least 2 as backups. But what will Michael Mamas and Yanni Zizers have to say here?
Well, I don't think they're going to be impressed.
No, definitely not. 2 of the most experienced refs in the league. Of course, Mamas recently reaching a milestone as a head referee last week.
Well, it's a hot night. It's a chance for players. It's not an official cooling break, but it is a chance for players on 18 minutes here to pause and take in some deep breaths and maybe take in some water as well. Brodie Boyce off to the dugout for a drink. As is Matty Dench, who's sporting a strapping around his nose or his mouth there. Either way, it's going to be difficult to get the airways fully functioning on a hot evening there for Matty Dench, the West Aussie, holding in that left-back position.
Yes. A very intriguing signing, if I have to say so myself. Oakleigh don't usually go this young. He's only 19, and I think to put it in perspective, spending time at Charlton Athletic and also being consistently selected in the Olyroos is not a mean feat. That's to be very certain. So I'm very intrigued to see what he can do in a more consistent starting role for the Oakleigh Cannons across the campaign. Perhaps he's maybe best pressed or best placed to secure a A-League gig. I mean, he's at the age where you can easily get scholarship contracts still. So
yes.
I think he could definitely put himself in that frame. I mean, Anthony Pandazopoulos is one that's now starting week in, week out for those Western Sydney Wanderers. And, of course, he plied his trade at the Cannons. So
yeah, what a success he's been. Scored his first NPL Victoria goal at this venue, actually, some years ago, did Anthony Pandazopoulos. We should talk about the, when we get a moment, Neil, we should talk about the Oakleigh Cannons bench because it could be one of the most stacked benches. Admittedly, some of these players are returning from injury and lacking match fitness, but it includes another left-back in Connor Hampson, also Pierce Waring, Alex Salmon, the youngster Adam Gerardovich, Ajak Dayu, the sub-keeper Lockie Hart. That is, that's probably one of your top 10 all-time NPL Victoria stacked benches, Neil.
3 strikers. It doesn't get any better than that, I can tell you that. As we do see the Cannons now through Joe Guess on the edge of the area. Looks to pop one. Might he look for a second bite of the cherry, perhaps. Here is Dench. Very neat turning circle. Here is Kingsley Sinclair towards the back stick. It's Kasumovic with the backwards header, and Condolian able to claim. One of the more undersized keepers in the NPL Victoria. Respectfully, of course. I don't want to put a downer on him. He did a very good job whilst at Moreland City, despite the lack of resources that they had. He was a shining beacon of light. As a great long ball towards Delano Ferro. Can he bypass Brodie Boyce? Oh. He's completely skinned him. Across the face of goal it goes. But no Sharks players to poke it home. As the Cannons will look to break here. Here's Maker. Held a very good account of themselves, of course, the Port Melbourne Sharks, who many have tipped them to be relegation favourites for this season. After finishing second in 2022, no remnants of that squad remains, unfortunately for them. Christian Bombacci, the last one to depart, as Anthony Laban looks towards Delano Farrow on that near side, but is unable to touch it into play.
Well, unable to control it on that occasion was Delano Farrow, but that previous passage of play absolutely skinned Brodie Boyce, left him for dead. Just couldn't find a player in red and blue in the penalty area to make it 1-0. And Port Melbourne looking for their first goal on home soil this season. Liston Diaz, their only goal scorer, getting in behind. Here's a huge chance for the Cannons. And dinked over the top to Kasumovic. He's going to tap it in. And the flag goes up to halt the celebrations, albeit premature. Good build-up by the Cannons. Port Melbourne caught square. But in the end, the flag went up, I think, against Asad Kasumovic. The first through ball was right on the money. Kasumovic may have wandered into an offside position.
Absolutely
won't stand.
Delightful ball from Joe Guest. I mean, he's in his 30s now, but he still has that poise and ability to traverse the final third with absolute ease.
And a tremendous run by Kingsley Sinclair as well, down the left wing to get in behind the defence. I am assuming a lot that Sinclair was onside and Kasumovic wasn't when I say this, Neil.
There's been a lot of conjecture around assistant refereeing calls, especially in this Port Phillip region, of course, on Monday night when South Melbourne played against the Melbourne Knights. Did the ball cross the line, Steve? I will never know.
We might need to get the former Fox Sports commentator Robbie Slater to get out there and give a recreation of that moment.
Perhaps. Joe Guest with delivery from the corner here. Towards the central region it goes, and Vikertzis was there. So too is Nicholas Dibb. Arneson with the rudimentary header. Here is McGilp. First time ball. Guest chests it down. It's got the advent of Knowles in behind towards the byline. Joe Knowles across the face, and Amenhom Karmas able to get it clear. Of course, he's yet another ex-Melbourne Victory youngster. Hasn't played at just one A-League academy, not just two, three. Macarthur Bulls and also the Brisbane Roar. So he's certainly well travelled. Back in his home state of Melbourne now is Amenhom Karmas, of course, at George Cross Jr. Towards the back stick, it's Tratt. Yanni Zizis has adjudged another corner on that far side this time. Well, Steve, I have to say that the Sharks are holding a very good account on themselves so far.
Yeah, that previous block by Karmas was a really positive sign that he was being proactive. He wasn't waiting for the chance to fall on his goalkeeper, Alex Condolian. It's going to be Joe Knowles over to deliver this corner kick. And it comes to the near post area. Oh, not far away either. And it's well played in the end by Condolian. He had Jacob Tratt bearing down Condolian again. He's hesitated and it's going to go all the way in. Cam McGilp has grabbed the most unlikely goal from out wide on the wing on the baseball diamond side of the venue, floating in a curling ball to the back post area. Condolian, who was still recovering from the previous intervention. Well, and for the second week in a row, the Oakleigh Cannons have scored by the virtue of an attempted cross that's found the back of the net. 1-0 to the Oakleigh Cannons, and Port Melbourne are kicking themselves, Neil.
That is immensely poor goalkeeping from Alex Condolian. I hate to say it because he's been pretty impressive so far, but Cam McGilp, that's one of the most unlikely goals he will score in his career. Doesn't score too many of them, does Cam McGilp, but this one will certainly go down as one Taru for the Port Melbourne Sharks, who've looked good in the opening 25 minutes of play, but Condolian adds to the Sharks' troubles yet again, as we do see Dibb of the Nicholas variety.
Well, that's the most bizarre goal I've seen in real time for some time, Neil, I have to say.
Yes. But hopefully we're treated to some more goals, but ones that are more aesthetically pleasing on the eye.
John Markowski sitting down on the esky, a la Marcelo Bielsa at the moment. He's a forlorn figure. He was really hoping to try and keep the clean sheet tonight, but at the moment they've got to batten down the hatches because they've gone one behind. They can't afford to go two behind, and Knowles is going to win the corner kick here for the Cannons as Joe Guest wanders over to take just a moment that Alex Condolian, he won't want to see that one again. He'd made a couple of strong clearances, punching the ball away, commandingly doing so, and then just a real lapse in concentration as that ball bounced through the penalty area. It's going to be another corner here as it's whacked out of play, ricocheting off the attempted cross from Kingsley Sinclair. So Joe Guest can go over and take yet another corner kick. So the pressure mounting on this young Port Melbourne side now.
Well, I have to say, I mean, Condolian has to ensure that he doesn't lose his confidence, because confidence for goalkeepers is a very integral thing, and the mistakes are more pertinent than any other position on the field. Oh, my word. Oh, my goodness gracious. A commentator's curse. The Oakleigh Cannons secure their second of the evening. And it might be one of an Olympico. Incredible stuff.
Well, let's see that again on the replay screen, Neil. The corner coming in from Guest right into the goal mouth. Condolian unable to get a good run at the football.
And that is most certainly a Joe Guest masterclass. Upon the replay, we'll see who the goal is awarded to, but it definitely looks like the trajectory. It was Joe Guest, but it might have been Joe Knowles.
Joe Knowles that's claiming it.
Might have got the final touch.
It was a touch in the 6-yard box. So Joe Knowles, back at his former club, the Oakleigh Cannons, scores for the second week in a row. Both of them in unusual circumstances.
Well, there we go. 2 goals in a matter of just 5 minutes. And
well, you feel for Alex Condolian right here. It's a nightmare situation on Friday night football.
Yes.
And we know what he's capable of too, Neil. We've seen him play some good football. As you mentioned earlier, at Moreland City, a team that was under siege a lot last year, and he stood up to the challenge when required.
It's a great ball from Guest. Kasumovic in behind. He bypasses Maker. Kasumovic, a great save by Alex Condolian. Might be a consolation for his 2 prior mistakes. Here's Joe Knowles, who wins his side a corner. That was very good positioning from Kasumovic to get in behind. Nipped in, didn't quite get the strike off in the manner that he intended. So
we'll give Alex Condolian some credit there too for making a good save. Perhaps Kasumovic could have been looking across goal to Joe Knowles, who was in a bit of space at the back post. It's Kasumovic looking for his second of the season and wanted to strike while the iron was hot.
That is to be certain. Can Joe Guest deliver yet another goal from a set piece? This time he opts towards a back stick to no one in pursuit by way of a header. And we will see Condolian with the goal kick. And I have to say, Avondale last week did put the Sharks to the sword. Of course, had the majority of the possession, as you would expect, but they didn't look too bad. The Port Melbourne Sharks got a goal back by way of a penalty. But it wasn't quite to be, as they lost 4-1 on the afternoon.
Who impressed you for the Sharks last week? Neil, you were there having a good look at that one.
Liston Diaz, I'd have to say, impressed me. But unfortunately for them, their biggest threat is not in the Smash squad today, as he signalled to us as feeling a little bit of hamstring soreness or tightness. Might have to confirm with him at half-time. But, of course, he did also miss round 1. So he's yet to make his Port Melbourne Sharks re-debut at Shark Park at JL Murphy Reserve. So time still waiting for one Liston Diaz, as we do see Jonathan Vikertis now with Karmas. Here's Delano Farrow. Good first touch. Providing chase. Here's Joe Knowles tracking back. I'm sure CT would be impressed by his intensity as Joe Guest looks to apply the pressure. The crossfield ball does find its way now towards Mark Lattis. Neat little first touch. Can he nip in the ball towards Markovski? He can't, but Brodie Boyce was there to clean up the scraps. Nathaniel Dibb interjecting as well. Kasumovic with a touch now, and after all that commotion, play has been stopped. Yanni Zizes is going to have a closer look at one, I believe, Jacob Tratt, who looks a little bit worse for wear. No, it's actually Joe Knowles. He's everywhere at the moment.
That was better for the Sharks. That combination down the right-hand side of Vikertis and Latsis combining well. Just needed to find that target in the middle of the line. The timing of the run, perhaps, from Josh Markowski. Maybe that could have been better. Maybe one of the centre midfielders could have been a target at the top of the box. Liban or Nicholas Dibb. They've both been very industrious in centre midfield so far this season, that duo. But if you have just joined us, it's 2 goals in quick succession that separates the two sides. Cam McGilp with a cross that wandered all the way into the back post. And then Knowles scoring from a Joe Guest corner kick from point-blank range. Alex Condolian unable to command his 6-yard box. That's a high boot you fancy by McGilp, and the referee's whistle will sound a unassisted stopping play.
Well, I'd have to say that's probably a yellow card. From my introspection, but it might not have been as intended as we initially thought, according to Yanni Zizes. So, as Nicholas Dibb is in all the pain in the world, we'll assess if he'll be okay. Hopefully, for his sake, it is. But might give us an opportunity, Steve, to have a look at the scores around the grounds. Of course, kickoff has commenced at Genesis Steel Stadium with Preston taking on the Altona Magic. 1-1 at
still
Green Gully.
no goals out there so far, Neil. So still 0-0 and no goals at the other ground. So it's still 1-1 at Green Gully against the visiting Hume City, and the Avondale side are still leading early in the second half against the Knights over at Thomset Stadium.
That'd be a very poor calendar week for the Melbourne Knights if they were to fall yet again, as we do see Brodie Boyce with the head of forwards, Guest, Leban interjecting. Looking very tidy on the ball is one Anthony Leban, the former Melbourne Victory youth product. Did score a winning penalty against Adelaide City in the formerly called FFA Cup in 2022. It was that time, I'm not sure you remember, Steve, when Tony Popovich, amongst all the COVID issues, was like, you know what, for this cup run, I'm going to play the NPL side with a few A-League players sprinkled in. So I think in that squad was also the likes of, if I'm not mistaken, Edmund Lepanku, who I believe's at Melbourne, Serbia now, and a few others as well, who I'm sure are across the NPL Victoria sphere.
It was a good watch that night, I recall, Neil. It's always exciting watching, an A-League club going up against an NPL club from another state, but that added an extra layer of intrigue with the younger players playing, and Anthony Leban, scoring that penalty that was all important on the night, and wow, what a good player he's continued to blossom into. And I must also say a happy birthday to his uncle, Tonchi Prusak, who's celebrating today. But at the moment, it's the Cannons looking to celebrate a third goal, perhaps, as it's played across the goal mouth. Joe Knowles was just a stride short of getting there to apply the finish, but he's going to keep it in play here. Turning on a sixpence was McGill. Joe Guest's touch has let him down there. That's almost a collector's item. You don't see that very often. Karmas, Nathan Dibb and Leban combining.
Leban, of course, as you do mention, since he left the Victory, he did go on quite the journey. Formerly of North Geelong, of course, based around that region, his family as well. And he went all the way to Croatia's third tier with NK Hvraci in the 2 HNL, and then returned to the North Geelong Warriors and now is at the Sharks. So could this be his final resting place in the Victorian football of consistency? We'll see.
It almost sounds a bit morbid, Neil. I hope
I realise that. I didn't mean that in a poor manner.
But it could be the place where he does find his home.
Yes,
and as you mentioned about his experience in Croatia, you can see his technique has only benefited from his time over there playing some good football in the Balkans. As here's Markovski. He's got a couple to beat out there on the far side, including Dench, and it's going to be out of play over near the players' race. Hope you're enjoying this one. 10 minutes until the halftime break. Steve Curtin and Neil Simons with you. NPL Victoria Friday Night Football, round 3 of the competition. Both of these sides looking for their first win of the season. Port Melbourne were giving as good as they got for the first 25 minutes, only to cop a couple of somewhat avoidable goals to see themselves trailing by 2-0. And Oakleigh Cannons now holding all the aces as they look to really mount their NPL Victoria Champions title defence. Their last win, that famous one, the goal scorer, Emlyn Wellsmore, he's no longer at the club. Neither is Stefan Valentini and neither is Oliver Kubalay. So it's a slightly new look squad under Chris Taylor, but so many familiar faces are still there. So much depth to come back into the squad too. So you mentioned Alex Salmon, Golden Boot winner, Connor Hampson, one of the best left backs that we've seen in NPL Victoria. That's a good challenge by McGill. Plays it into the corner. It's perfectly weighted for Joe Knowles, who just lopes after the ball, gets to the byline and cuts it back to the top of the box. Kasumovic was the target, but it was a good interception by Maker, but his clearance goes only as far as McGill, who's already scored once, and he thought, why not try my luck again? He's off target this time.
Yeah, John Markowski growing a little bit frustrated, as you would expect from the touchline. And in contrast, Chris Taylor, nothing to say. A very simplistic man is Chris Taylor. He puts out the plan for his team, and most of the time they execute as they look to maintain or extend their 2-0 lead over the Port Melbourne Sharks away from home. Of course, this is a fixture in which Port Melbourne have only won 2 out of the last 10 times they've played. If you were to go all the way back to a time in which the Sharks did win, the team was filled with the likes of Chris Duggan, George Mells and Ross Archibald. So certainly been a time since that point forward. But can the Cannons extend their lead now, as we do find Joe Knowles on this far right-hand side. Launches a cross in, and it might yet fall for Joe Guest, but it's deflected away. And cheeky footwork from Nathaniel Dibb. And too much energy exerted, according to the Sharks players, as they remonstrate with Yanni Zizis in the box. Now Arneson, cheeky little cutback for Brodie Boyce. Flushes away down that left-hand side, but a rare shot on goal for right fullback, former defender, central defender, in Brodie Boyce.
He hasn't scored in NPL Victoria yet, and he's in his 30 appearances for the Oakleigh Cannons, but my word, that was a good opportunity. He didn't quite execute the technique as he would have liked to if he was to try that one again. Always curling away from the far post.
Of course, very talented player in his own right, as Joe Knowles is going to break the way towards the byline now, but it went for one Nathan Dibb, who got the last touch. As we do have a score update at Thompson Stadium. The Knights have conceded another to Avondale as more misery imparted upon Ivan Franja's side. 2 injuries in the loss against South Melbourne on Monday. And
tough week.
Yeah,
short turnaround.
Since that incredible win 2 weeks ago, looks like they might have lost their last 2.
Corner by Guest into the back post area. It's away by Liban, and then Ferro, well, he put it back into trouble, did Delano Ferro, but eventually it falls into the grateful arms of Alex Condolian, who gets the ball rolling quickly through Jonathan Vikertis. In front of him, here's the opportunity for the number 19, Thomas Alessandrados, but he ran into a brick wall there, and in fact, the throw is going to go the way of the Cannons, so that'll really stop the attack dead as we approach 5 minutes to go till the half-time interval here at JL Murphy Reserve. Oakleigh Cannons looking the goods. Goals from McGill and Joe Knowles. Joe Knowles, second of the season. A welcome returnee, and here he is about to control the ball out of the evening sky again on the chest. He just seems like he's got so much time when he gets in possession, Neil, doesn't he? Here's McGill. Oakleigh just going through the gears here. Boyce's ball down the line. McGill goes to ground. Assistant referee flags for a foul against Delano Ferro, who feels a bit stiff there. He was the player who got in position to win the spot kick last week, but he's given away, or he's been adjudged to have given away the free kick here. In a handy position for Joe Guest to deliver this one, Neil.
Yes, Joe Guest. He's got the best right foot in the comp by virtue of delivering set pieces. Or left foot, or both. I'm not even. He can do everything. Joe Guest.
He could legitimately take this on his right foot and have a shot if he wanted to.
He could if he wanted to.
And probably score. But
but nonetheless, the former Curzon Ashton midfielder will take it on his left from a very, very, very acute angle. So it looks like the tall timber will be aimed towards. His Guest decides to go low, in fact, and nearly caused more trouble for Condolian as it fell in behind his back, or between his legs, as the Cannons earn themselves yet another corner.
Heart palpitations in the 6-yard box for the Sharks again.
Poor Alex Condolian. He's having a night from hell.
And once again, the 6-yard box is absolutely crowded as Guest lives this one right into the back post area. It's flicked away by Maker, but he's only succeeded in putting it out for a corner over on the other side, and Joe Knowles wanders over to take from the Salmon Street side of the venue, the Bay side, or the western side of the venue here. Oakleigh Cannons look like they're in cruise control at the moment. A Sharks goal before half-time would change that, but at the moment, it's all hands to the pump as they defend deep on their own goal line here. Look at that packed 6-yard box. And it comes to the near post area. Looking for the flick on. There was Matty Dench. Here's Dench on the ball again. Knowles now. Again, just in space and time as he floats in a delightful ball, but it's well away by Maker. Here's Tratt looking to get himself on the score sheet. Forward by Boyce, and here's Guest. Looking to float in the cross. Just tries to sell some candy, but the Cannons are forced to go back. Boyce now. McGilp out wide. Space and time out wide for the Cannon side. In the shadows of the halftime break, Kingsley Sinclair. It's a delightful switch of play. Picks out Dench, who looks to skip past Latsis. Good duel between the two young men on the far side, and good recovering tackle, Mark Latsis. And he's copped one in the face for his troubles here. Oh. So the trainer might be called out onto the park here to... He might have copped a poke in the eye, perhaps, here, you fancy Mark Latsis. We hope he's okay.
A bit of UFC action. Pokes in the eye. Not from gloves, it was from the hand of Matthew Dench, perhaps. Hopefully not, for his sakes. But, yeah, Latsis is a very intriguing case, a curious case of Mark Latsis, of course. Not often you see players sign to A-League academies directly from NPL sides, from a senior position. There's actually a couple of them in the senior squad for the Melbourne Victory this season, with Phineas Harbinson, of course, formerly of Bulleen Lions. But he was one who actually got... He suffered a horrific leg break against the Victory in a promotion relegation playoff from NPL 3 to NPL 2 a few seasons ago, and got signed back to the Victory and now is at the Sharks. So Dench looks to masquerade his way forward. It's now with Latsis. Finds one for Curtis, who's got space up ahead of him. Decides to go centrally. Farrow is going to have to chase this one. A foot race between Delano Farrow and Brody Boyce, but Farrow decides to give up. Not entirely sure why. What's happened here?
Looks like there's been a whistle on play, has there, Neil?
It's definitely not for offside. Is the ball maybe flat? Oh, my word. We've had Olympicos, we've had balls being flat, we've had a lack of balls. I'm not sure what's going on here. Looks like this ball might be discarded. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. There's a ton of confusion at the moment, but seemingly a free kick has been given in the Sharks' defensive half. Not sure for what, but yeah, I think we'll just move on swiftly. 3 minutes of added time in this first half. Here's Condolian. Alison Drados going to draw it into a more central channel. His Guest lays it back now towards Jordan Hall. An exquisite switch, but their first was the one of Nathan Dibb. Farrow spent a couple of years at Dandenong City. Well travelled is Delano Farrow across his NPL journey, formerly of the Springvale White Eagles, Box Hill United, as well as the Preston Lions, in which he was one of tens of players to be let go in the off-season. Here's Laban. Space up ahead of him. Laban. Very neat footwork, but still wins the ball back, does Josh Markovsky, and the Cannons able to secure themselves a throw-in inside their defensive half, just beyond halfway.
Well, you just wonder, Neil, if perhaps we might see John Markowski swing some changes at half-time. On the bench, he has some options. The 21-year-old Oliver Yankolowski. He's got the striker Aiden Brown, who's come on in both of the games so far. Alex Besianowski, the 21-year-old local product. Also, Nikita Sitzmill is another interesting one who came on, got some minutes last week at Avenger Park as well. So Daniel Serra and sub-keeper Luka Romic.
It's very neat work from Delano Farrow. As Tratt seeks to head away. Sort of a who's who of VPL 1 and VPL 2 players for the Port Melbourne Sharks. It's a very interesting squad, Steve, and I have to say that they're competing against the Cannons.
That's right. And even, you know, as you mentioned earlier, they've roped in some players from the state leagues as well into this team. It's a real... It's something of a ragtag squad, but if there's ever a coach who can get the best out of it, we saw it with John Markowski 2 years ago at the Altona Magic. That squad was not tipped to make finals, probably favoured to be a relegation candidate. Played some excellent football, had some thrilling games, some great come-from-behind results out at Paisley Park. It turned into a real box office team, to be fair.
And unearthed a few stars as well, including the likes of Sian Cuba as well, who did exquisitely well in that system. So did Jonas Markovsky, obviously, another one who signed for the Brisbane Roar from the NPL Victoria. As Warren Moon once said, NPL Victoria, centre of the universe.
Yeah, certainly. So glowing endorsements, not only for the league, but also for the coaching of John Markovsky. At the moment, he's got a mountain to climb, and he's getting frustrated as he exchanges some words with fourth official Michael Mammis. As we embark on the halftime break, Steve Curtin and Neil Simons with you. Big thanks to James behind the camera, giving you the best look at the action. If you can't be here at JL Murphy on a balmy Friday evening, ball in behind was angled for Anthony Laban, who was making an intelligent run beyond the defenders, but they're going to run out of time here, the Sharks, as they finish the first half with a little bit of territorial advantage, but it was a disaster in the middle of that first half that saw them concede. Firstly, a Cam McGilp cross that bounced all the way into the back post area. Only 3 minutes later, on 28 minutes, it was a Joe Guest corner. The Sharks couldn't deal with it. Condolian couldn't come and punch, and it was bundled home by Joe Knowles, who scored his second obscure goal in the space of as many matches. He doesn't mind. That's his second for the season, and the Oakleigh Cannons hold all the aces here at halftime, Neil.
Well, yes, absolutely. And I think the Sharks, very promising in those first 20 to 25 minutes, but the confidence breaker, the 2 goals conceded by the Sharks, Alex Condolian, you'd have to say, holds the unfortunate position of being likely responsible for those 2 goals, but don't put it past the Sharks. They are a resolute outfit, and they will always fight towards the end, and that's what we've seen in these first 2 fixtures. Could we see more of the same or more misery? Let's find out in the second half.
Well, they need to come out breathing fire, and we look forward to your company for the second 45 at JL Murphy Reserve, where at halftime from Steve Curtin and Neil Simons here, it's Port Melbourne 0, the Oakleigh Cannons 2. We'll be back after this short break. Players back out on the field for the second half of this one. NPL Victoria action. Friday night football, round 3 of the competition. This is Steve Curtin and Neil Simons with you. James behind the camera on the NPL Victoria live stream. At the moment, it is Oakleigh Cannons leading the way 2 goals to nil. If you have just joined us, those goals coming from Cam McGill and also Joe Knowles in the 25th and 28th minutes respectively. And the Port Melbourne Sharks would be well pleased if they can draw first blood in the second 45, Neil, and try and put the cat amongst the pigeons in the second half, as we've got a chorus of loud motorcycle engines heading back up Williamstown Road towards the city. It's that kind of night, Neil. It's warm weather. It's still around 27 degrees here at 9:20 local time in Melbourne.
I thought it was the engine of Mark Latsis just running, to be honest. No, but...
he put it into neutral and put it into park for half-time, hopefully. Look at him. He's ready to go. He's poised on the halfway line. But, Neil, what can Port Melbourne do to get themselves back into this one in the second half?
Oh, it's a good question, because I'm of the understanding and the impression that there's not a lot that you really can do, to be honest, to break the mould of the Oakleigh Cannons. I mean, we saw 2 weeks ago the side in which defeated them, Avondale, were very lucky to do so with goals from Luca Tavia and the 90th minute sealer from Kalalu Kamara. But if the Sharks are able to generate anything from this contest, I would more so be asking questions about the Cannons' trajectory as opposed to the Sharks. As we do see now on the ball, Alan Homkamas looking to launch a ball towards that left-hand channel. Too far to reach for one Delano Ferro, and it will be a Cannons throw-in. But you did mention benches, Steve. The Cannons, a very stacked one at that, but the Sharks have more so a mystery on their bench, if I were to say so myself, of course, including one Alec Bechvinovsky, including himself, Aidan Brown, Semil Yankulovsky, Luka Romic and Sarah. So certainly stretched for players, you'd have to say, the Sharks delving into their youth setup very much so. Steve Curtin.
Absolutely, and their star signing, Liston Diaz, given the captain's armband before round 1, and then he's only been able to line up in 1 of the 3 games so far. It's a big loss for John Markowski, who's doing his best with this squad, which is featuring players like his son Josh, who's come up from Mill Park in the state leagues, other players who've come from far and wide, from VPL 1, VPL 2, and even below. So they're doing the best with what they have, and it's also a brand new squad that doesn't know each other, and it's going to take time for them to try and find some cohesion in this playing group, as well as the obvious challenge of them not having maybe the same qualities as other squads with more valuable. Here's Alessandratos. He's bundled off the ball by the new signing for the Oakleigh Cannons, Harry Arneson. Maker now. And the Sharks mount a challenge early in the second 45 here. Maker. The 2 number 8s go at it. He skips past the challenge from McGill. Nathan Dibb. This is Ferro motoring down the left wing. Delano Ferro looking for options ahead of him is Alessandratos. Pressure from Hall. He just flicks it back down the line. Ferro, one way then the other. Can't find space for the cross. Back to Dibb. And the Sharks look to recycle possession. A good spell of possession nonetheless for them. Leban and Nicholas Dibb. Such important roles to control the centre of the park against the experienced figures of Cam McGill and Joe Guest in particular in there. Nathan Dibb showed too much of the football. And Oakleigh can come here. This is red alert for the Sharks. And smacked into the upright. Wow, what a strike that was. Joe Knowles again put his foot through that one. And he nearly had his 3rd of the season. Alex Condolian looking on gratefully at the upright, which rebounded the ball clear of the danger area. Latzes comes in for the ball competing, and he's cleaned up his opponent there in Matty Danch. And it's going to be a free kick for the Oakleigh Cannons. So, again, as we started the first half, Neil, end-to-end football at JL Murphy.
They can't afford to give away possession in the defensive half. It's just crucial they don't. You've got zippy players in the park. Joe Knowles, who's been fervid and intent in getting the ball in any sort of channel possible, causing trouble yet again. Matty Jench, Kingsley Sinclair, players you just can't afford to give time and space. Joe Guest, very nippy feet himself as well, as Cam McGilp, after that challenge, seems to be beating it all ends up, and they might have to force a change. So they've just got, I don't think they've got any midfielders on the bench, do they, Steve?
And with Noah Holmes out injured tonight as well, they're really short in that area despite having so much depth in wide areas and in attack and in some of the fullback positions. But it looks like the fourth official, Michael Mamas, has queued up the board here. We're going to see a change.
An early change for a CT team. Am I dreaming? Adam Duradovic is going to make his way onto the park. The former Melbourne Victory youth product did the damage in VPL2 and VPL1 for many, many seasons. This season he's decided to come up to the NPL, and the Oakleigh Cannons, his side, of course, very talented. Number 9, usually Duradovic has not been involved with Victory's A-League setup, but promises much poise. So we'll see as to where he fits in. I think they're going to move Kingsley Sinclair central, which I cannot say I'm really surprised about, but yeah, we'll just see as to what they could do here. I think Sinclair was also playing that left wing role in that first half. So they've decided to have a change in approach. Will it affect the way in which the Cannons set up? We'll find out as Laban wins back possession for the Sharks. Here's Maker. Karma, should I say. Condolian with the long clearance. Markovsky with a flick on Heller. Alessandrados is going to look to make his way forward, and Nick Feely will be forced to clear. It's touched down by Farrow. Good little 1-2 touch. Here's the Sharks with Anthony Laban, who's been brought to ground. Ziz's no free kick adjudicated by himself, and we'll see Knowles win the resulting throw-in now just past halfway for the Oakleigh Cannons.
Well, you mentioned Kingsley Sinclair moving into a central role, and we saw that last week as well out at Green Gully when Noah Holmes was subbed out injured, and that's that versatility that Chris Taylor really demands of players in his squad to play multiple positions, and we're seeing that from Kingsley Sinclair here coming in and playing a central role. And here's a chance for Duradovic, such a prolific goal scorer in the VPL1, 14 goals at that level last year. A lot of people surprised that he departed the Victory, but here he is at the Cannons and getting his chance off the bench for the third time in as many weeks. Ball to the back post area. It's just about there for Markovsky. The shot's blocked. And it's a good block by Jacob Tratt. Stood his ground. Never looked too worried about the situation he was facing. So calm and composed in defence. Jacob Tratt and Jordan Hall. And Jordan Hall, it was, played a key role in that opening goal. Looking at that one again on the replay screen in the halftime break. Making that deceptive run across the eye line of Alex Condolian. So perhaps we were a little bit too harsh on Condolian's goalkeeping for that first one, perhaps, as Jordan Hall provided that deceptive run and really put the young goalkeeper in a situation of doubt as to whether to zig or zag, and in the end the ball found its way into the back of the net from the boot of a Cam McGilp cross to open the scoring. Throw into the Cannons here, and Joe Guest is motoring forward, and the long limbs of Karmas trying to knock the ball out, but that ball's refusing to cross the touchline. We'll give you a round the ground scores in just a moment. At the next stop in play is a foot race between Josh Markovsky and Jacob Tratt, who was well placed, read the play very well, exceptionally, as he always does at this level. And that's a good touch by Liban. So the Sharks are going to continue their attack here. Alessandrados, not on the same page as Farrow, and that's disappointing for the Sharks as the move breaks down.
All the Sharks so positive going forward, just really struggling to get the shot off here and there. Just have a pop, son. What's the worst that could happen? Sure, more deleterious circumstances could be derived out of this game if things aren't taken into the Sharks' hands by virtue of shots here and there. And we'll see now Condolian. Sharks playing with a lot more patience on the ball, which is a good sign. So we'll see a change, it looks like, for the Sharks as well. Looks like Aiden Brown's going to make his way onto the park. Still a teenager, 19 years of age. Very excited to see what he can deliver on another substitute appearance for the Sharks. As we do see the Cannons under a lot of pressure, but they deal with it impeccably well. It's played back towards Nick Feely. Bob Watt up in the air. High for Joe Knowles. The backwards header from Nicholas Dibb is caught brilliantly. Technical acumen on display from the former Melbourne City product. He's really been everywhere, as Nicholas Dibb, South Melbourne junior as well. Spent time at FK Mlada Boleslav for about 3 years, and then spent another 2 seasons at Dandenong City. And of course was teammates with Delano Ferro at Preston, who's now on the ball now. Looking to bypass Brody Boyes. He does so quite well, but the teasing ball just into the arms of Nick Feely. In addition to Brown, we'll see the Sharks bring on yet another player. But just for the time being.
Looks like young Luka Romic. Both of these players have been at Caroline Springs, Georgia Cross at some point. Luka Romic is previously of the Western United and Melbourne Victory Academy systems. But yeah, he come through Georgia Cross when they were still based out of Sunshine. Yeah.
So it was quite a while ago, hey?
Going back a couple of years. So yeah, it's almost, I'd say almost like a new club. It's certainly a new setting. Very different setting out at Fraser Rise, where they have one of the better setups for local football anywhere in Australia. And we're going to see that change now. And it's going to be at the end of proceedings for Josh Markowski. So the coach's son is subbed out of the game. And it's also going to be withdrawal of the left back as well, Nathan Dibb, whose time is up. He's perhaps lacking the match fitness after only getting to play less than 20 minutes in round one and then being suspended last week as well. So Nathan Dibb's been subbed out, and he's going to make the long way around as he's crossed the touchline over on the far side. As he's dismantling the shin pads now and wandering back around behind the goal at the Williamstown Road end of the venue, your left of screen, where Alex Condolian is lining up this restart. Hope you're enjoying this wherever you're tuning in around Australia or further afield. G'day to Joel in East Geelong, and we're enjoying bringing this one to you tonight. Steve Curtin and Neil Simons, James behind the camera for Sportscast Australia, and the Oakleigh Cannons are enjoying this one at the moment. A workman-like performance. It's not a 5-star performance, we wouldn't say, though, Neil.
No, not at all. But I think if the Sharks can offer one chance from Daniel Serra, actually, it wasn't Luka Romic. It's actually Daniel Serra that's made his way onto the park, Steve. So Luka Romic actually has the number 23.
And also, Luka Romic is a goalkeeper too, so
yes.
We'll bear that in mind as well.
I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news, but nonetheless...
22. Daniel Serra, yes.
Yes, formerly of Victory's 21s, and also a former North Geelong
Former North Geelong boy, of course.
Yes. Not just Anthony Leban. Good to see a few North Geelong players in the Victorian Football League system at the top level. Of course, North Geelong now in VPL 2. If you were to be reminded of... They did play one game here in 2023 against the Port Melbourne Sharks. It was George Melzer got on the score sheet on that game. Got on the score sheet on Monday as well in the original Melbourne derby. And he's got some kids to coach tomorrow. His under-11s at Yarraville as well.
Well, hello to all the youngsters if you're tuning in. Maybe the parents, maybe the youngsters have gone to bed already, Neil, on Friday night.
It's a big day for them tomorrow. They've got the Altona Magic Hobson's Bay Cup, which is takes all the Victorian youth teams. I think Avondale has got some teams playing Green Gully as well, Altona City, so a lot of variety.
Well, make sure you bring plenty of water along for that one tomorrow. Stay hydrated. It's a warm day forecast. Here's Jacob Trutt on the ball as Curtis looks to make the interception in front of Duradovic. Kingsley Sinclair, the central midfielder, the would-be makeshift central midfielder. He's doing a good job in there, though. Played out wide. The first touch by Knowles is a useful one. Forward by Jordan Hall. Up the line was Boyce, who's got forward, and man down here for the Sharks, and Boyce is just going to saunter forward. He's got Kasumovic ahead of him. He decides to go laterally for Guest. And this is a chance for Joe Guest to play it in behind. Well read, Johnny Vikertzis. Guest had received the ball from Matty Dench, and he looked to thread the eye of the needle through the Sharks' defence, but the experienced figure of Johnny Vikertis was well positioned. Here's Aidan Brown. Good tackle by Guest. Doing work at both ends of the park. The Englishman again. He's just so good with the skills in the tight spaces, close control and first touch, but then he's also so good at winning the ball back when Oakleigh use it. Jack of all trades. Hard-working number 10 for Chris Taylor's side, and he's just been so consistent as well since he's been at Jack Edwards Reserve for the Cannons.
I guess the Oakleigh Cannons have got more of a luxury of having players that have stayed at the club for more than just the 1 or 2 seasons. I mean, McGill being one of them, Kubele prior to his departure to Preston. They just have this sense of just keeping players and maintaining players within the squad. I think this is Brodie Boyce's 3rd season at the club. So they've retained a lot of consistency, and I think that's really encouraging to see. Squad turnover is very much a present factor in NPL, as Leban, of course, nutmegging Harry Arneson and then winning the free kick. Harry Arneson, a very interesting journey for him, of course, the Brisbane Roar youth team. His father, actually, a very, very esteemed footballer in his time. Yeah, Paul Arneson was involved at the Newcastle United setup. Didn't actually play for them, though, in the Premier League, but did play over 80 times in League Two for clubs such as Bradford City and Carlisle United. So, the more you know.
The pedigree in the family there for Arneson. Here's Karmas. Everyone behind the ball in the white shirts at the moment.
It's not just him, his father. Nick Feely's father also played for Chelsea, I believe, as well, back in the day.
Here's Vikertis. This is Dib. So we'll see what changes lie ahead for the Sharks. Have they gone with one less defender since they made that double change? Daniel Serra coming into midfield. Looks like Nicholas Dib playing a deeper role as well, in what looks like maybe even a back 3. At the moment, at least, anyway, with Vikertis pushing up the right back. And here's Lebarnes. Thought about trying to supply the cross to Aidan Brown. Latz is trying to get in front to win the ball. It was a good bit of defending in the end, though, by Dench to stop the Sharks' wide man. Vikertis. Sliding in again was Dench. All action defending from the left back.
There are players on the ground, left, right and centre for the Oakleigh Cannons.
It's committed out there.
Oh, absolutely. I must say, Anthony Leban has really impressed me. Steve has been a shining beacon through this Port Melbourne Sharks midfield. He looks to be about all of 6'1", 6'2" maybe, but he moves as if he is a very tidy midfielder. Has got that sort of Sergio Busquets touch. I can't believe I made that comparison, but that is the truth, to be honest. I mean, they both move in very similar ways, and I've been very impressed by his technical acumen. Could be a player to watch this season for the Sharks as they hopefully escape a relegation dogfight.
I was going to say maybe another former Barcelona player who was a tall midfielder, and say maybe Rivaldo, but that's probably a little bit too far up the park. Leban's not really a 10, is he? But
could be.
I mean, it would go well if you went with something like the Alco Park Rivaldo, as someone who's hailed from North Geelong, but that nickname might not stick just yet. But look, something for Anthony Leban to work towards.
I remember watching Anthony Leban against Nunawading City in 2022, I believe. It was the day of the A-League Grand Final when West United played against Melbourne City. In that team was Nishan Velupale. I think Josh Varga was on the opposing side. Such an intriguing victory youth team it was. Leighton Brooks was involved as well. He's actually on the score sheet tonight for Preston.
Yeah.
So certainly done it all in his career. Has Anthony Leban. Here's Kasumovic looking to make his way through. That's a dangerous tackle from Maker. And about 62 minutes in, we're going to get our first yellow card of the evening.
Well, Maker hasn't been booked thus far this evening, but there wasn't really much choice there for Giannis Isis, who comes over, brandishing the slice of cheese for the Port Melbourne central defender. He goes into the book, and a game that's been played in good spirits so far, but Maker had to try and make that tackle, but it was all man rather than ball. And it's a free kick in a hand position here, as once again Alex Condolian puts 2 in the wall. 2 of his shorter statured players in Vikertsis and Latsis, as the committee come to stand over this one.
Oh, yes. And I have to say, seeing the sights of Alex Salmon and Connor Hampson warming up would it be the greatest for Shark supporters.
Oh, you feel a little bit unwell at the thought of this as
oh,
Joe Knowles stands over this one, ready to deliver a venomous right-footed free kick in your fancy. It's going to come in low at the front post area, as it does, and it's headed away well by substitute striker Aidan Brown, defending well in his 3rd appearance of the season, all of them off the bench.
I have to say, I've been very impressed by Joe Knowles' efforts. Obviously, we believe he scored, but it's been a thoroughly complete effort from him. Of course, well, if you do remember, he did have a spell in India following his departure from the Brisbane Roar, and then starred for, I'd say, will probably be one of the best ever Western Australian footballing outfits I've ever seen assembled in my time. Liam Boland, Joe Knowles as well involved.
Almost an NPL Victoria All-Stars in
Aaron Williams as well,
yeah,
for Olympic Kingsway, who had a very nice cup run. I believe they faced off against, I think it was Adelaide United last season as well. So
that's right, Olympic Kingsway, the team that sounds like a freeway, but they were freewheeling with that group of players, that's for sure. Look at this ball over the top here, and Kasumovic, it's going to be flagged offside. A frustrating moment for him. He'd love a goal tonight, Asad Kasumovic. On the score sheet back in round 1, Jack Edwards against Avondale when they were sunk by a last-minute winner by the Avengers,
who themselves have seemingly secured a victory at Thomson Stadium. 3-1 the last time I checked the score. It was Stefan Zini and Christian Trajewski getting on the score sheet. So more misery for the Knights, who fall to their 2nd defeat in just about 4 days. So unfortunate for them. But, of course, facing 2 fantastic footballing outfits in both South Melbourne and Avondale, who I think 3 rounds in, we can call them the bookies' favourites at the moment. Although early days, though. Leban, fantastic ball into the box. It's for Mark Latsis across the byline. Is there a late runner? There was. It was Daniel Serra who made a complete meal of it. But all hope is not yet lost. It's Dib with the ball in behind. It's neatly timed, but the backwards header unable to be delivered on goal, and the Sharks will have a throw-in.
Encouraging signs for the Sharks there. Daniel Serra at the top of the box. His eyes lit up. Execution was not on point, though, as it sliced off the outside of his left boot.
And Brown towards the back post. In fact, it just loops over the bar just that little bit. But the Sharks, you could just need to afford them one distinct opportunity, and the complexion of this tie can be completely transfixed. We'll just see as to what the approach might be from John Markovsky's men.
Well, there's still time on their side. Over 20 minutes of regulation time plus stoppages. We will get out the old satellite phone system and go around the ground, take you around Melbourne, and at Thomson Stadium it is a full-time score. Avondale 3, Melbourne Knights 1. Agwek, Trajewski and Zini as the Avengers race to a 3-0 lead before Fraser Dunlop, the former Shark, got himself his first Melbourne Knights goal. A consolation, albeit on 85 minutes. So Avondale, 3 wins from 3. They're red hot in season 2025. Looking like the team to beat so far, at least.
Absolutely so. Alessandrados. Here's Vikertsis. Fantastic delivery. Delano Ferro!
What a chance that was for the Sharks.
John Markovsky absolutely livid at the lack of purchase from Delano Ferro. That was the opportunity, but they have earned themselves a corner. Could the tide slowly shift? And how about that delivery from Johnny Vac?
Fantastic.
Incredible.
An inviting cross, a teasing cross.
Yes,
that would have made things interesting.
Made things fascinating, but they do have a corner. One of their first of the evening. Nice delivery at that. But they'll have a second bite of the cherry now on the obtuse angle. Delivered high. It latches at the back stick. He hooks it back in. To no avail, but the Cannons will look to break. And it's the South Australian, Asad Kasumovic, on the prowl. Guest to his left. Kasumovic. Neat little turning circle. Breaks his way into the area nearly. And is awarded a free kick on the edge of the area. As nice edge as you can possibly think. And I think it was... In fact,
Karmas giving away the free
Karmas
kick.
giving away the
He's got
free
a bit
kick.
of cramp now as well, so...
I was a bit worried if he gave away a free kick, might have been a second yellow for Maker, but it was in fact Karmas who did give away that foul.
Hey, ref, at least wait till he tackles him before you
So the trainer's been called out.
I'm not sure how you can go from a knee brace to coming on as a substitute within 3 weeks, but Alex Salmon, well done to you, my friend. He makes his first appearance of the NPL Victoria season. A timely addition to the matchday squad. Just about the most prolific striker we've seen in this competition over the last half decade. Himself and his fellow countryman in Connor Hampson.
This is not a good sight for the Sharks. You're trailing 2-0, looking for your first points of the season. Somehow, if you could swing things around, flip the game on its head, and you look up to see the fourth officials board go up, and who's coming on? Alex Salmon, last season's top scorer. Not only that, Connor Hampson as well, who had a chat with him before the game as well, and he indicated that he wouldn't be seeing any of the action tonight, but he was obviously playing it down. But they're going to have to wait for the moment because Asad Kasumovic is going to line this one up. He's hungry for a goal. There's 4 in the wall here. Condolian summoning all his powers of concentration here, and it looks like they're going to have to defend this one with 10 men because Karmas had some treatment on that cramp issue, so Kasumovic is going to line this one up through the wall. There was no draft excluder, and it went straight through the middle of the wall. That will not impress. That will not impress John Markowski, who is absolutely livid at the moment. And they've given that one as a corner kick. And I think he fancied that should have been a goal kick.
Yeah, he's not happy, and we apologise if you've heard a few expletives on the FX. We'll see a double change. That free kick was the last act of Asad Kasumovic, as he'll come off for...
He's trying to escape. He doesn't want to look up and see his numbers on the board, but he's just seen it. And he's just done the who me.
And the set-piece specialist, Connor Hampson, is also going to make his way onto the park, as he will come on for Matty Dench. So... 2 Englishmen coming onto the park. I'm not sure if we've ever seen that in the NPL Victoria for quite some time. Bringing on 2 foreigners, and 2 fantastic foreigners at that. Delivered in low by the Shark, by the Cannon, should I say. Danger areas for the Sharks once more. Brodie Boyce now. Looking cross-field for Joe Knowles, but cleaning up are the Sharks through one... Nicholas Dibb, the only Dibb remaining on the park. There's Nicholas Dibb, Christopher Dibb, and Nathan Dibb, who all play in the Football Victoria system. I believe Christopher is at Pascoe Vale.
Christie's left St Albans now, finding himself.
Yes.
Yes. Speaking of various clubs, we could look around the grounds again and just mention that the Preston Lions are still leading 1-0 on 57 minutes against the Altona Magic in that big derby fixture out at Reservoir tonight. BT Conroe Reserve, or Genesteel Stadium if you like. And full time at Green Gully 1, Hume City 1. And the goals again from Ashcroft and Abdullah.
Abdullah getting a goal against his former side. That is intriguing. I mean, I certainly, his first game, I was very much questioning if he was able to repeat the exploits of last season, but 3 rounds in, 2 goals, he's looking the goods so far.
Well, a la Liston Diaz's goal against his former side last week. Both of those were from 12 yards.
That's also very true. And also a...
But it takes courage to step up and take that shot on, though, as well, Neil.
Absolutely.
Your old team, and both of those players duly converting.
I have to say, also, a duly deserved point for Green Gully with our former commentary friend and Craig Filer taking up the assistant coaching job there under David Chick as the Port Melbourne Sharks earn themselves a free kick at the midway point of the attacking half.
Well, we certainly miss our favourite Welshman on special comments as our analyst to join us up here in the gantry. We missed that Welsh accent. We've got a red card alert going off here. Which ground is that happening at, Neil?
Well, the only other ground in action in the NPL Victoria Preston Lions. We'll have a look at that and bring you the updates on that imminently.
Well, we'll witness this free kick first. Could be a lifeline here for the Port Melbourne Sharks as the Tall Timbers gathered at the back post. Maker, Karmas, Aidan Brown and Anthony Liban. It's delivered into that back post area. Tratt towering above the rest and heading it clear. Farrow competing for the ball. Over the top by Nicholas Dibb. And here's Delano Farrow who hooks it back. Maker making the run into the penalty area. It's going to be a chance here from the set piece for the Sharks as well.
So I believe it is Stefan Negro that's made his way off the park with one of the worst tackles I've ever seen.
It was high.
NPL.
It was
very high. The ball delivered in.
Yeah, somewhat X-rated from
yes,
Stefan Negro. His eyes were on the ball, but the ball was at the head height of his opponent, and hence he's been marched down to the tunnel early. So an advantage there for Altona Magic, who trail by a goal to nil out there. So they will have the numerical advantage for the remainder of this one. At the moment, it's the Sharks trying to get back into the action, and that corner, well, that's a real letdown at this sort of level to not even give that one a chance for the Sharks when they need it the most as well. Out for a goal kick.
Yeah, I just get the feeling that the Sharks are growing a little bit tight. Perhaps they need some more legs out there on the park. I mean, as for Oakleigh, I think they could put themselves back into first gear and see this game out as they fit. It'd be a big confidence booster for them to get their first 3 points of the season. Not the greatest of starts for them, but on the balance, they faced off against two pretty good footballing outfits. So, in rounds 1 and 2, should I say.
And speaking of facing off against pretty good footballing outfits, you look at the Sharks, they faced the top 3 of last season in the first 3 weeks.
A baptism of fire.
And then Avondale, and then the champions Oakleigh. So at least they will have some opponents that are maybe a bit more tangible to get a result against in the coming weeks, where they'll play Green Gully next Friday night, then the Melbourne Knights on a Sunday fixture on the long weekend, and then it will be a home match against Melbourne Victory here on the following Friday after that. So they'll fancy themselves to at least be in those games and maybe picking up some points, some much needed points, because it looks like if this result is to play out, it's going to be 0 points in the book, and they're going to be racking up a bit of a negative goal difference as well early on in the season. Yeah,
I mean, the 1-0 loss to South was an all right performance. I mean, a red card, all things considered. I think against Avondale they were quite poor, but they had some good moments. It's a beautiful piece of skill from Jonathan Verkurtzis as Michael Atzis earns just side a corner. Just that poise from the 27-year-old and Jonathan Verkurtzis, just duly deserved. He's put in a really good shift.
He gives them something, doesn't he? He gives them something. He's come across from having not played at this level since 2019, but he's got that experience. He doesn't bring height, but he brings many other attributes.
Oh, yes. Technical acumen, and that's... You don't represent Australia at youth level without having some form of technical ability, so it's good that they've added him to their arsenal. That is
disappointing. That is very disappointing, Neil.
Schoolyard boy stuff, to be honest. That is Nicholas Bentner at Arsenal type stuff. I remember, I think, in the Champions League that happened to them as well.
Well, it just shows it can happen at that level as well. But Oakleigh set the trap there, and Port Melbourne went for the cheese.
Yes, bit of cat and mouse, as one would say. But as for the Oakleigh Cannons, it's about 13 minutes of regulation time remaining. It looks as if they'll see this one out for not... The Sharks would like to say anything about that, as Aidan Brown looks to create some attacking forays forward, but ran into a long-time A-League defender in Jacob Tratt. And where hasn't he played at this point, to be honest? Sydney FC, Western United most recently. Here is the Sharks now with Alex Condolian. Now towards Jonathan Curtis. A little bit too hard and fast for Kingsley Sinclair to mop up now.
It's nearly taken out a member of the crowd there, Neil. Going to be quick thinking if you're lining the fence here in close quarters to the pitch. That's one good thing about this venue. You can get a really good up-close look at the play. The spectators almost on top of the field at JL Murphy. Here's a touch for a substitute Alex Salmon and also for Connor Hampson, but they've turned it over here. Here's Karmas. Out wide is Serra, the substitute, who's trying to stamp his imprint on the game coming on as a sub, but it's a horrible turnover from Karmas. He's given it straight to the danger man in Joe Knowles. Looking in the middle, and it's gone all the way across the face. What a chance that was. The outstretched boot of Adam Juratovic. And a horrible giveaway from Avanhom Karmas. Just can't afford to give Oakleigh chances like that, or they'll just punish you time and time again. And Port Melbourne were lucky to get away with it on that particular occasion, Neil.
Again, it's just that lack of concentration from Karmas. It's all well and good to come out of your box, but you have to be purposeful to have players in those positions and be purposeful with your passing as well. And on that occasion, it clearly was not the case. So the Sharks given yet another reprieve, but as the game draws closer to the full 90, I guess you just get the feeling that the Sharks might have more misery imprinted upon them as Salmon looks out wide for Joe Knowles. He's got space to run in. Serra does well to hold him up briefly. The Curtis comes with a diving header. And Andrados. Now it's with Knowles again, breaking inside. Nice little neat piece of play. It might yet fall for Adam Juratovic, but he just miscues the volley. Just sort of needed out of play, if you want to call it that. And Condolian will, I think, how many goal kicks has he taken this evening?
Yeah, he's lucky he hasn't blown out his quadriceps on that preferred kicking leg, Neil. I think it just feels like since the composed players like Alex Salmon have entered the fray, that goal is, that third goal for Oakleigh is coming any moment now as they just pass the ball around the perimeter of that Port Melbourne penalty area. Repeat attacks, and the Sharks, that elusive goal on their home deck, looks like it's going to elude them for a second straight home fixture as they've conceded a free kick here. We're going to get another change as we move into inside the last 10 minutes of this one.
I think it's going to be the Sharks to make a change, and it will be...
Looks like Alex Besvinovsky is going to be the one coming on. He's been
Besvinovsky, yes, the son of the great Sash Besvinovsky, the greatest Victorian goal scorer. And he did score a cracker on his debut as well. I think past Alex Condolian, if I'm not mistaken, against Baldwin City. It wasn't quite on his debut, should I say, but it was his debut goal in the NPL Victoria. Hasn't scored since, the former Melbourne City youth product. Can he provide some added intensity for the Sharks this evening as they search for a goal back in this contest?
Tell you what, Jacob Trutter's enjoying himself out there, reading the game so well, and the Sharks just really playing it into the hands of an experienced player who's, you know, probably still good enough to be cutting it at A-League level if another opportunity came up. Here's a chance for Knowles, gets to the byline, cuts it back, well read by Maker, who's going to just waltz out of his own penalty area, but the next pass is key here. What options has he got? Tries the raking switch of play, trying to clear it over the top of the substitute Connor Hampson, but it ran a little too long and into the palms of Nick Feely, who gets his first touch for a little while, and it's actually going to be a double sub taking place in a minute. Also, Nikita Sitzmill, should I say, is coming on, who came off the bench last week at Avenger Park as well.
Yes, so spent last season at Springvale White Eagles, so quite the trip up from Springvale to Shark Park, but nonetheless, we'll see the changes come in force now as we will see Alec Besvinovsky come on for Thomas Alanson-Drados, and Delano Farrow making way for Nagina Chichmill.
Yeah, Sitzmill, another one of these players who's stepped up from, state league level last season as well, albeit it's a promotion-winning campaign.
Was also a part of that FC Melbourne Serbia team that was also in Men's State League 1 in the early 2020s.
What a rise of fortunes that club has had on the national stage last season in the Australia Cup, knocking off their opponents. I think it was the Modbury Jets from South Australia. Here comes another chance for Knowles. Good sliding tackle by Daniel Serra, who's done really well there, Serra. Good effort by the substitute. Now, Nicholas Dibb trying to combine with Latsis. It looks like he's drifted across to the left-hand side. Yes, that is yet another motorcade of motorcycles going this time along Plummer Street as opposed to Williamstown Road. It's that kind of night. Everyone's out and about. It's warm weather. We thought summer was gone. That cold snap we had felt like it was winter football last Saturday afternoon. Summer is back as the cross is blocked by Verkurtis. Hayden Brown, that's a good first touch, but can't quite get it out into the path. Fellow substitute Alex Besvinovsky. Sharks have got the throw here, but they're a little bit slow in coming forward to take it. You can see the frustration from Anthony Leban and coach John Markowski. Taken by Verkurtis. They've coughed it up here again. This is Hall. Space and time to walk the ball out of his defence. Out wide is Knowles, combining with Brody Boyce. Up the line by Hall, but it's all Sharks there. Karmas with the interception. Little shoulder check and decides to keep going forward. And Karmas has shown some really good quality in his career. He's just got a little bit of inconsistency you fancy at the moment. Maybe a little bit of lack of confidence that's affecting him with just a couple of mistakes creeping in at critical times.
Yeah, of course, he was also formerly of that Moreland City side with Alex Condolian. As I said, there was a few in the NPL still.
That's right, another side that was certainly getting lots of defending practice in NPL Victoria last season when they were under the pump more often than not.
Yes, and we will see it probably 5 minutes or so to go in this contest. The Sharks, well, many have tipped them to be in amongst that relegation dogfight, if you will, and I think the sentiments might be echoed more so. A big fat 0 after 3 games played this season. They will be well and truly rock bottom on the NPL Victoria table, regardless of all the other results this round. Of course, the Altona Magic secured a 3-0... Sorry, no, it wasn't a 3-0 victory. It was a 2-1 victory against the Altona Magic. Sorry, against the St. Albans Saints last week. Just absolute word salad. But we'll see a few more changes for the Oakleigh Cannons, and this one does make
this is a big
me
one,
smile. It does, for 2 reasons. One, a former youth product of Western United, but also a man who's had to go through so much pain and struggle over the last 12 months. Ajak Dew returns from his ACL tear. He signed for the club, of course, after a stint with St. Albans, and was highly touted, was going to be that centre-back partner with Brody Boyce and Jacob Eliopoulos last season. Now it is his time to make his mark, and the Cannons have retained his services for this season, which is a very nice gesture from the club. And so too Pierce Waring. We thought he retired, Steve, but he's back playing football still.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to retire Pierce Waring. He's still got something to offer, but Latsis, look at this pace from Mark Latsis as he plays it across. Aiden Brown was making a run to the back post, but it was too close to the goalkeeper, Nick Feely. And you can't say that Port Melbourne haven't created some reasonable chances to get themselves on the scoreboard tonight. That one on the break, Mark Latsis using his pace. on his non-preferred flank, the left-hand side. That might have been what cost him when he tried to cut the ball back, and it was straight into the grateful palms of Nick Feely, and touch from Maker. And these subs on the sidelines, Ajak Dayu and Pierce Waring, are being forced to bide their time, but they'll be on in just a moment as Liban brings the ball over the halfway line. Here's a chance for Sitzmill in the long sleeves.
I love that. That is a throwback right there.
Long sleeves on a night when it's 27 degrees. How about that's putting fashion over function, I think.
Yes.
Kamas picks out Liban, but Tratt stepping out of the defensive line to win the ball back, and he's going to continue his forward run here. Perhaps he wants to get in on the act here. The big central defender, he's decided to drop back into defence now as the ball gravitates out to the right-hand side. Knowles was making the run, and at full stretch was Kamas. Well played by the central defender. He goes down with another bout of cramp, and he's just battling on and gritting his teeth, but he did well there to put that one behind for a corner kick. And we're going to see those changes now, and coming off for the Cannons is Jordan Hall, and the other player is Joe Knowles, and excellent performances from both of those players as they're replaced with, well, like-for-like replacements. Pierce Waring coming into the attack, and Ajak Dayu will come into central defence alongside Jacob Tratt. And, well, they say never make a sub when you're defending a corner, but given they're attacking a corner, this is perfect. Ajak Dayu can go straight into the opposing penalty area as his first action coming on as a central defender here, you fancy. And he will.
Why not? 5 minutes of added time as well. Pierce Waring, of course, making the move across from Green Gully last season. Ball whipped in towards the near post. No one to meet it. Here's Kingsley Sinclair. The chip one in to Radovic. It's high and way over the bar from Connor Hampson, right into the construction region on pitch 2. We will see another change for the Sharks. Their final one for the evening.
Looks like Oliver Yankolovsky. It's another player who played a bit of State League 2 Northwest at Mill Park, since moving up from State League 3 at Diamond Valley United. So a teammate of Josh Markowski at Mill Park last season. He's going to come on for Kamas, who has been struggling with cramp in the last 15 minutes or so. I must say, Neil, a warm night. We regularly talk about our FV-issued commentators' kits and all the equipment we bring to games. Something we didn't bring tonight that we perhaps could have used, and I'm going to speak probably for James behind the camera here as well, is a bit of air regard for the limbs. I feel like I'm being attacked by insects up here on the gantry beside Port Phillip Bay here as Kingsley Sinclair is motoring forward. His defensive header is spot on by Maker, and he can butter up for a second one here as well. Sinclair is going to win this back at ground level. This is Hampson. It's an enjoyable night for the Cannons fans. If you're tuning in as a Oakleigh fan, no doubt you're enjoying this. Seeing some experienced faces coming back into the squad. And here's one of them, Hampson, on the overlap, supplying the crosses. Salmon at the back post, and Waring was closest to it, but he couldn't pick out either of his attackers there, and it's out of play for a Port Melbourne throw, as we are well and truly into that added 5 minutes of stoppage time.
Here is the Sharks as they look to earn themselves a consolation goal. It would be at this point in time as it's out towards that far right-hand side. Chichmill got space to roam. Liban racing forward, almost as like a number 10, so to speak.
That's the Alco Park Rivaldo right there then, Neil.
Late show here at the Sharks. Perhaps for themselves. Chichmill back with Nicholas Dibb. Space opening up for Liban on the right. Fashions in a very nice delivery. It's Serra once more. It's Bechvinovsky. And it is tame, and it hits the fencing behind the goal. Well, if you weren't enthused with the 4 matches tonight in the NPL Victoria, well, don't we have an absolute treat for you in these last few days of round 3. Tomorrow we've got the Dandenong Derby down at George Andrews Reserve. It is going to be an absolute thunderbuster, as something that Greg Blake would have said back in the day, probably.
Game of the round, definitely.
A rip snorter.
A rip snorter.
Yes, that is
corker.
The great Greg Blake. That is going to be a cracking game. 7 p.m. kickoff on Sunday at Thompson Stadium. St Albans taking on Heidelberg. They've just recently done their pitch down at their ground.
Yeah, Churchill Reserve upgrades are
yes.
well underway, or well, hopefully almost completing, because it's going to make it a little bit hard playing all these games away from home early in the season. That's
Absolutely.
the ground at their home away from home, their sister club that plays in the same competition, of course, but that'll be at the recently renamed Topstep Stadium. If you are wondering, that is Summers Street or Knight Stadium of yesteryear.
Absolutely.
He's Waring, looking to maybe imprint himself on the game in the final minutes. Sarah sees it out of play.
And of course on Monday, Melbourne Victory's youth side take on South Melbourne FC. Fixture we haven't seen in 9 years. We almost had it in the Australia Cup by virtue of seeing both senior teams playing, but we'll have to settle for the kids versus the men.
Definitely felt shortchanged, and we didn't get to see that in the Australia Cup last year, Neil, but the day will come.
One day.
The day will come.
One day.
That is not the full-time whistle.
I thought it was. The Sharks, Steve, I think it's a case of they're, let's just be frank and honest here, they're very under-resourced. You can see by the players that they've brought in. Aside from, I guess, Liston Diaz and this man on the ball right here, Jonathan Vikertis, they're going to struggle to win a few games this season. But they have shown sparks. They have shown green shoots. Can they conjure up a few points to really gain some momentum and perhaps unearth a few stars for the season?
Yeah, there's enough there to give the fans some hope as we get the full-time whistle, and it is a 2-0 win for the Oakleigh Cannons. Those goals both coming in quick succession in the first half. Cam McGilp on 25 minutes and Joe Knowles from close range on 28 minutes. They get their first win in their NPL Victoria 2024 Championship defence in season 2025. They are on the board. That sees them with a win, a loss and a draw. Puts them on 4 points, and they can gradually start to creep up the table. And they're known for doing that as well in previous seasons. Just a slow build into the season, and the big story, the big talking points, the return of Alex Salmon off the bench tonight, the return of Connor Hampson off the bench as well. Admittedly, some injury concerns in the heart of midfield with Noah Holmes not fit to play tonight, and also Cam McGilp off injured. But again, that Chris Taylor, that versatility that he demands of his players, Kingsley Sinclair slotting in there. He obviously trained there. He played there a little bit at the back end of last week. He knew what he needed to do, and he did an excellent shift filling in central midfield. So they've got those options, the jigsaw pieces. They can shuffle them around, the chess pieces, perhaps I should say, Neil. But yeah, as far as Port Melbourne go, I think it's too early to judge them at this point in time. They played last season's top three. As we said, they got some games where they've got some better opportunities, where they've really got to come out and try and get on the front foot against Green Gully, Melbourne Knights and Melbourne Victory in the next 3 weeks. And I think in 3 weeks' time, to round 6, we'll be able to judge John Markowski's side. Listen, Diaz is key to that. He needs to be back in there. He needs to be out there creating things for some of these other players. He's got players who are around him who can finish chances, like Josh Markowski. He scored 4 goals for the Magic in that season when they played finals a couple of years ago with that unheralded squad, and it could be a repeat of that perhaps for Port Melbourne. They've got a lot of work to do to shore up their defence at the moment, I think, Neil.
Oh yeah, and I think it's I really do feel bad. I'll be honest. I do feel a bit the plight of this football club in the last few seasons has been very intriguing to see. Aside that, I never thought would finish second in this league in 2022. To see how sort of they've fallen far. They made finals the season after. Last year they missed out. Nick Marinos is gone. He's actually coaching at Heidelberg. He's coaching their under-17s, I believe. So, yeah, it's unfortunate because there's been so many green shoots out of this football club, and the remnants of the past is gone. None of these players from 2022 are here anymore. It's up to these new players to make a name for themselves, and they haven't done that so far, but it's a very young group, and a lot of these players will grow into it. Anthony LeBun was incredibly impressive. I'm intrigued to see what comes out of him. But for the Oakleigh Cannons, it is back to the drawing board. They have their 3 points as they look to begin their title charge to the Australian Championship, potentially, for season 2025. I've been Neil Simons. He's been Steve Curtin. It's been an absolute pleasure to join you on this Friday evening. Plenty more NPL football to watch this weekend. Thank you, and good night.